Good evening, I'm Diane Vernile.
I'm Mike Jaworski. We're coming to you from near Arthur. We are preempting province-wide to bring you this special.
On Strong Winds, Stronger Will, we take you back to the places devastated by tornadoes a year ago today. If you look behind us, you'll see a brand new country home. But this is what it looked like after a violent twister ripped across the countryside that day.
Weather experts all agree the tornadoes of April 20th, 1996 were very unusual. They came early in the season, and they packed a big punch. Usually they come a little bit later on in the season.
And here's how they started. At 4 p.m. that day, hail rains down in Leamington. People in Walkerton and Point Clark also report seeing hail the size of mothballs. At 6 p.m., funnel clouds are spotted near Arthur, Williamsford, Holland Center, Chatsworth, and Meaford.
At 7 p.m., more funnel clouds are spotted near Shelburne, Violet Hill, and Alliston. An hour later, torrential rain comes down in Angus and Barrie. And finally, at 9 p.m. that night, the sky's clear.
Mike, you mentioned that last year's tornado was very unusual, and that's especially true for people living north of here in Williamsford and Holland Township, because they don't normally see tornadoes that far north.
And several families saw their homes completely knocked down. The last year, they've been struggling to rebuild and put their lives back together.
And it's been there the whole time?
Right. April 20th, 1996 is a day that George and Doris Greer will never forget. This retired couple living in Williamsford, just south of Owen Sound, was out of town that day. Late that night, as they turned onto their street, they saw a hydro crew working. As they got closer to their house, this is what they saw. On the spot where their house once stood, a bare foundation, and scattered all around, all their possessions. It was almost too much for Doris to bear.
Well, how did you feel when you drove up here late at night and your house was gone?
It was gone, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. My heart just started pumping terrible, and I just thought, well, right there now, something was going to happen.
Well, I thought everything was gone. I didn't know if I had anything left or not.
And it's really devastating, isn't it?
It sure is.
The next morning, in the light of day, they took these pictures.
And here's all your stuff in behind the house, scattered on a hill.
That's true.
What a big mess.
And we had a travel trailer as well at the back, and it was gone. The only thing that was left was the wheels. And
so here's all your
frame.
stuff strewn across the backyard. How long did it take you to clean all this up?
Well, we were several weeks, a week or two, I guess, altogether.
Well, it's decent.
This is amateur video of the tornado on its path of destruction. Still in a state of shock, the Greers joined forces with an army of volunteers to try to recover what they could of their belongings.
We came back next morning, and we did what we could, and sort of gathered up a few things, we didn't have any clothes except what we had with us, or anything to wear. It was all out in the field. It wasn't a thing, here. And there was no, we just just sort of took an inventory of what we did have, and which was very little.
Then, making matters worse, it snowed, as it often does in late April here. Doris and George moved into a motel, then into a friend's trailer, trying to decide what to do next.
Well, we didn't know just at first. You're so upset, we didn't know what we should do, if we should go and buy a lot somewhere else or rebuild here, and then we decided we'd rebuild here.
Doris says even though practically everything they owned was gone, she and George still had each other and their health. And it's that resolve that helped them to start piecing their lives back together.
What is it that helped you to carry on every day, though?
Oh, I don't know. They said, how can you smile? And when you come through such an ordeal, I said, well, life has to go on, and people don't want to see you going around with a long face or something. You want you to, enjoy your life. So that's what we did.
With the insurance money they collected, the Greers rebuilt their home. It's an open concept with a living room, a big kitchen and dinette, and 2 bedrooms. In spite of the tragedy they endured a year ago, the Greers consider themselves to be lucky today.
Well, it's, I don't know. We've always wanted a new home, and we've repaired several, and it was the first new home we've ever had. So we really appreciate it, and it's what we wanted, and we
There is
really
a silver
enjoy it.
lining to this cloud, is there?
Yeah, there is. There really is. So, I mean, I think we're very fortunate to have a home and be able to be in it.
Coping with the devastating effects of last year's tornado strengthened the human spirit of this couple. Unfortunately, the same can't be said of their neighbor 2 doors down. 79-year-old Ernie Plant was making supper in his mobile home that night when the tornado struck.
The stove would be like, say, there, in that corner there. And I was just putting the pot of soup on it.
You're making dinner.
Making supper, yeah. And the damn thing hit me, and the glass started flying around my head, and I don't even remember anything else.
So it just swooped in?
It just swooped in, and there wasn't one damn thing left. Well, they tell me, I didn't see it, but there wasn't one thing left.
Ernie was found unconscious in his backyard by a neighbor. He spent a week and a half in the hospital, and when he got out, he learned that, like his neighbors the Greers, his home had also been obliterated.
When you came back here finally for the first time, what did you find?
I found this.
Nothing. It was just
Nothing.
leveled.
Nothing.
Where was all your
damn thing.
Where was all your stuff?
Well, they had picked up some of it, a lot of bits of tools and stuff.
In the field and behind.
Well, around and all out of the sheds, I guess. The sheds went, but I guess some of the tools didn't all go.
Ernie says he had the wind knocked out of him that night, and he's had breathing problems since. A widower living alone, he says the past year has been the toughest time of his life. The tornado even killed his dog.
I still think I should have made a job of me. Should have killed me instead of leaving me here to suffer.
Why do you say that?
Because I haven't had a life called since all this happened. I have been here a year now, and I'm still not able to do anything.
Insurance money helped him to rebuild his home. And 2 doors down, the Greers say they're keeping an eye on their friend Ernie Plant. It's a neighborhood that pulled together in a time of crisis, and they're helping each other to move forward.
Mike, now here's something that's really quite remarkable. George Greer unfortunately lost his wedding ring in the tornado. He wasn't wearing it that day, and he left it in his house, and of course it was knocked down and everything blew away. And his wife, Doris, she also lost her diamond engagement ring, the same story. But while the volunteers were out in the backyard looking for things, picking things up, they found the tiny ring lying on a wood pile.
And even with the hills right here in this field, there were things that they thought were lost that volunteers were combing through the field and they found them. Still ahead, in the Arthur area, what are the chances of this happening? These people had to build not once, but twice.
Closed captioning of Province-Wide is brought to you by Parkway Ford. Parkway Ford is the Ford Superstore in Waterloo.
Tornado 1 year ago today.
Right behind us is the house of Judy and Bruce Eden. Just about everything they owned, except the house, was blown away.
But this wasn't the first time they were hit. It was the second. Each time, a personal and financial setback.
Such hardship, such heartache. A tornado wiping out the farm of Judy and Bruce Eden. Their livelihood in ruins. But this wasn't the first tornado to hit. They were also devastated in the 1985 tornado.
It's a personal setback. Like, it's not just so much the money. It hits you personally because you've been here all your life. It takes years to build up a farm. It takes years to build your equipment, your workshop, and to have it just gone in seconds, it's devastating. Like, it's not something that you just get over in a few months once everything's built up, because it still takes years to get back what you've lost.
Like, you've got all these shiny new things, but but really, I mean, so what, right?
Right, exactly. It's I don't know, it's very depressing in one way. Like, I find it more so for my husband because he's been here all his life. put his heart and soul into things for years and years and years, and he loves farming, and that he takes great pride in his equipment. He takes it a personal one-to-one basis with his livestock, and but I'm sure he, once things get rolling again another year, he's gonna be glad we stayed. And that there's sure you're gonna have the good days and the bad days, but that's like any job.
Yeah.
So time's the best healer.
But it takes a long time to get over this. The buildings are new, the house is repaired, things look fine. Yet there are small but telling reminders.
It was a disruption for, I can't pinpoint a time, but for quite a while, because we had 2 small children this time. Whereas in '85 it was just my husband and I, so it's a little bit easier to, uproot yourself when it's just the 2 of you. But it's still frustrating now because, again, there's still so much yet to do. Like, it's not, the main buildings are up, but there's still an awful lot of other things to get done. And as far as, like, his tools and that, he's lost so many, so every little job he goes to do, instead of taking a half an hour, it takes hours because he can't find what he needs or he doesn't have it. And it's things like that that are still very frustrating and will be until, he gets the proper equipment or proper tools he needs back.
Insurance has come through, but not everything is covered. Even with disaster relief, the Edens have been out of pocket for some expenses. Same over at the farm of Candy and David Hill. Here's what their farm looked like. Now they've got a new house, new barn, and a lot of good and bad memories.
I don't know whether we've ever really wondered why it's happened, but it certainly has been a learning experience, something that we realize that we can handle it. By going through it, we think back, and with everything we've done within a year, normally we couldn't have done that. Like when you think we built the barn and everything, and replaced machinery in the house, the full house, furniture, everything, within a year. That really, it baffles us, yeah, that we were able to do it.
And it says a lot about the community, too, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, without people, we couldn't have, we couldn't have done it without a lot of people and their help.
Do you still see some of the people who helped you out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and actually, they still drop in to see how things are, or call us, or, everything. You meet them in town and say, how are you doing, and what's up? Are you settled in yet? And it means a lot, because they haven't forgotten what we went through. They're still, and just the other week, we had that real windstorm. The next day, a lot of people called and said, how were you last night? So it was kind of neat that they haven't forgotten what we went through.
The day of the tornado, David Hill was in the barn. It was blown away, but he survived. Candy and their children hid in the basement. The house above them torn apart. They were all right. The storm has left them with a new sense of what's important.
It's brought us closer, yeah. And I think we've learned to depend on each other a lot more, and we don't make decisions without each other discussing it, yeah. It has really brought the 5 of us a lot closer, but Dave and I especially have become much closer. We realize that, the Lord's been there for us, and that we've worked it together, and we have got strength in our marriage through it.
I mean, almost seems cliche when you say that something good can come out of something like this,
yeah.
huh? But it has for you.
Oh, it has. It really has, yeah. Not that I want to go through it again, but there have been so many good things that come out of it. We have met so many people who have become real true friends, and it's brought our family. We've always been a close family. We've talked everything out through the years, and I think that's what helped us this past year, is because we've always shared problems with each other, and the kids were open and able to talk to us, and we were able to talk to them.
Well, Diane, the good news is that most of the families we interviewed said they were able to rebuild because of their insurance money and locally raised funds.
And for those of you who are still waiting for provincial funds that were promised a year ago, the local organizers tell us they have that money. They're just waiting for the insurance adjusters to file their claims before they can hand out those checks.
Still ahead, you've seen them in the movies, and now we want you to meet some real live tornado chasers.
If we saw a tornado, the first instinct would be to get to safety, like your basement.
Yeah, but not Ed and Jareen Verkuyk. They get out the camera and get as close to the action as possible.
They are Canada's only bona fide tornado chasers. I paid them a visit this week to see how they compare to the Hollywood version.
Remember Hollywood's summer blockbuster last year? In the movie Twister, a couple of tornado chasers recklessly tear up the countryside trying to get their weather predicting device up inside a tornado.
This was a great idea.
How close do they get? Well, the character played by actress Helen Hunt seems she can't get close enough. And now meet some real live tornado chasers. Ed and Jareen Verkijk are Canada's only tornado chasers. Each year they log about 100,000 kilometers driving across North America trying to snap pictures of tornadoes. They've already written a number of weather-related books for Environment Canada.
What did you think of that movie when it came out last year?
Oh, I think it was lots of fun, but it didn't really have much to do with the real experience of chasing, except maybe for some of the excitement involved, but no one would be that foolish.
Yeah, we could sense the emotions along with the people that were in the movie. But when we're out on the road, a large part of the time, it's a chore. And there's a lot of time spent sort of driving long distances, watching things that aren't producing anything spectacular, waiting for those rare moments to appear. And when they finally do we get really pumped up underneath a big storm that we think may go tornadic, all of a sudden at that point, you're careful, you're wary, you're fearful. I mean, you know the dangers in these situations, and you certainly wouldn't take the kind of violent or ridiculous chances that they took in the movie.
Like they drove right into it, right?
Yes.
Ed and Jareen don't live far from where the tornado struck at Williamsford and Holland Township. Within hours, they were there to study the damage.
When we first started, we were just doing a little bit of ground research for Environment Canada on the impact of the tornado. And as we went around talking to people, we realized that this was an opportunity, or a rare opportunity, to find out what the experience was like and what people can learn from someone else's tornado experience.
The couple decided it was worth writing a book about, not just to tell what happened that day, but to try to teach people how to develop weather awareness should it happen again. Ed says last year's tornadoes were very unusual.
They were very strong, and they were extremely early, and it's quite possible that the northern tornado, the Williamsford one, was probably the earliest on record, or close to it, for this far north.
Take a look at this aerial footage from near Williamsford. You can see where the tornado mowed a path through this forest, knocking down tall trees as if they were blades of grass.
These two tornadoes, the ones that started by Arthur and the ones that started near Williamsford, displayed just about every possible shape and configuration of a tornado in our experience. Not everything, but almost everything. And for that to happen within one event was really quite remarkable.
Even though we're getting better at recording tornadoes when they strike and then showing you the damage afterward, the weather experts still can't predict which storms will produce tornadoes.
When it comes down to the tornado happening somewhere, it depends entirely on having been seen beforehand by someone and reported. And so the tornado, more than any other aspect of weather, is something that will depend on your eyes and your experience with weather.
And our experience with weather in southern Ontario tells us from mid-spring until early fall, an average of 15 tornadoes touch down. It has to do with our proximity to the American tornado alley.
What the lakes do is they kind of filter out the tornadoes that would have occurred closer to them. So if there weren't any lakes around at all, you would have more tornadoes farther north in Ontario and also farther south along the region of Lake Erie in Ontario. But because they're there, they filter storms or tornadic storms out more in those regions and leave the ones alone in the middle. However, the reason they're here in general, let's say in Ontario more than, for instance, in New York State by comparison, is the fact that we are on the northeast end of the American tornado alley. So that the big sweeping weather systems that come out of Texas and Oklahoma and so on race up towards the Great Lakes and carry the severe weather with them, and it kind of aims towards southern Ontario and then peters out as it goes east from there.
Ed and Jareen hope their book, Under the Whirlwind, will teach people how to spot a dangerous sky and when it's time to take cover.
People have seen one tornado either in their own experience or on television, and they think they're all going to look like that. Especially on the northern tornado, people were very surprised because it was a bright sunny day and the sun was shining when the tornado hit them. They expected it to be dark and gloomy and windy and rainy. It was silent. It was bright for those people who were hit.
It was all the things that it shouldn't have been from people's expectations.
Most people's instincts seem to be pretty good guides for them there. I don't think they had a lot of awareness, especially on the North Track, as to what specifically they should do, but most of them did make it to their basements just barely.
So if you hear there's a tornado watch, that means look out the window and keep an eye on the weather. A tornado warning means get into your basement or a safe area.
The most important thing to bear in the back of your mind is where you would go in your house for safety and what sort of a plan you have to round up the family and whatever it takes to quickly make that move to a safe place.
Ed and Jareen Verkijk's book, Under the Whirlwind, is going to be available in mid-May.
Do you have anything you want to say about our program tonight? Have a pen and paper on hand. Our mail segment is coming up.
Well, that's our program for this week. If you have any comments, you can write to us. Here's our address.
Send your mail, care of Province-Wide, Post Office Box 91026, Station C in Kitchener. Our postal code is N2G4E9. Or you can fax us a letter at area code 519-743-0730.
Or you can email us at provwide@ckco-tv.com. And we'll certainly try to read your letter on the air or follow up on your suggestions.
Thanks for watching. I'm Mike Jaworski.
And I'm Diane Verneil, and we'll be here again next week with the latest issues province-wide.
Good night.